Hello YouTube family, welcome to the channel. My name is Marty Bodie. If you're new to the channel and you like the content, be sure and like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all of those things help me grow the channel. So today I have a question. When it comes to riding, do you prefer riding your motorcycle by yourself or with a friend? Or do you like riding in a group or being part of a group? Be sure and comment down below. And let me share with you my journey. Of course, I started out as a kid riding dirt bikes. And then I, of course, became a young adult, started riding on the street. So initially, when I started riding on the street, I would usually have what I call a riding buddy. I remember one supermarket I worked in. I was the assistant store manager, and I would get together with the butcher, the market manager. He was also a biker, and we would get out and ride together. And then as a young adult, still as a young adult, I became a Methodist pastor. I had a preacher friend that we would get together on usually Saturday and ride our motorcycles. Matter of fact, he and I like to tell people that we have ridden through hell together. Yeah, it's kind of fun to think that preachers have ridden through hell together, but yes, you might have guessed, we got caught in a thunderstorm, and I began to think really quick, this rain is really stinging. I looked down at my gas tank, and it was pea-sized hail bouncing off of my gas tank. So yeah, my friend and I, we've ridden through hell together, literally. So again, that was just a riding buddies. Let's see, in the year 2000 or so, I became the pastor of Noonday Methodist Church just outside of Tyler, Texas. And it just so happens there were a couple that were members of the church that I actually went to high school with in Marshall, Texas. And they had a motorcycle. So I started riding with them. They very quickly became my riding buddy. Well, they owned a Goldwing, and they're also the ones that introduced me to touring bikes. One day my friend Alan, I was at his house, he said, just take my motorcycle home. We'll swap motorcycles for a couple of days. Oh my goodness, I got out on that Goldwing, and I thought, man, I see why people love touring bikes, particularly a Goldwing. I ended up buying a Goldwing because of that experience. So I would ride with my friends Alan and Denise. Well, they were also members of the Goldwing Road Riders Association there in the Tyler, Texas area. Huge chapter. Now this was, over 20 years ago. Huge chapter. They rode every Saturday, and a day ride for them might be, 500 miles. I mean, they really like to ride, and I had a great time. That's when I first realized, man, it is fun to be a part of a motorcycle group. Once a month we would meet at a restaurant and have a meal together and fellowship, and then again they rode every Saturday. I tried to ride at least one Saturday a month with the Goldwing bunch. Well, after a while I was appointed to a Methodist church in Southeast Texas. And I had always wanted a Harley Davidson. Finally, in 2003, I purchased my first Harley Davidson. And the reason it took so long is I wouldn't give more than MSRP for a new motorcycle. And some of the Harley dealers now are trying to, get more than MSRP for one. They call it a market adjustment. Well, they can adjust their price all they want, but in my case, I'm not going to buy a motorcycle of any kind for more than MSRP, but that's a whole other story. So I moved to Southeast Texas, bought the Harley Davidson, and gradually got more and more involved in the Harley Owners Group, also known as HOG. I had such a great experience in Tyler with the Goldwing group, and then I had this incredible experience in Southeast Texas. I lived in Southeast Texas for 20 years and was very active in the biker community. Let's see, 2017 I bought my first Indian motorcycle, and started riding with the Indian Motorcycle Riders group. There for a while I had the Indian and the Harley, and was part of both groups. And even 4 years ago, when I went exclusively Indian, I continued to ride with the Harley Owners group, because they had in the Indian Motorcycle Riders group there in Southeast Texas, really they became my second family. I mean, you spend a day riding with folks, eating a meal with them, being a part of their weddings and everything else that goes along with life. You really bond with folks. So I was active with the Harley group, the Indian group, and then also in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, I founded a motorcycle ministry called Redeemed Disciples. We have a very strong chapter there in Southeast Texas. It grew way larger and way faster than I ever thought possible. A really strong group there in Southeast Texas. We do have a few members sprinkled around other places. It's very easy to join the Redeemed Disciple Motorcycle Ministry. We don't have a hang around period. We do not prospect or any of that. We're a motorcycle ministry. We're not a motorcycle club. So, you know, some of those practices, which there's nothing wrong with those practices, it's just, you know, we don't follow those particular practices. Basically, if you want to join, you fill out an application, turn in the application with $100, which covers the cost of the patches, the required patches, and the first year's due of $25 is included in that $100. And we have three basic requirements for the Redeemed Disciple Motorcycle Ministry. You have to love God, love bikers, and be active in a local congregation. We don't care where you go. We just want you to go because God wants you to go. Again, I'll say that for another video. So just a hair under 3 months ago, my family and I moved to North Carolina. My wife's also a Methodist minister. We moved up here so she could attend Duke Divinity School in Durham. So I immediately got plugged in to the Indian Motorcycle Riders group in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been to several of the Harley dealerships since I've been here. I have not yet been to a Harley Owners Group meeting or a Harley ride yet, because currently I'm riding an Indian motorcycle. But I have to confess, I still get Harley fever. I love both brands. If my budget would allow, I'd own a Harley and an Indian. I did back in 17. It was the best of both worlds. But I've gotten plugged into the Indian Riders Group. And the Indian Riders Groups, I know the one in Southeast Texas, we were every bit as active as the Harley Owners Group. Just the chapter wasn't as big because not as many people ride Indians as they do Harley Davidsons. And so the Indian motorcycle groups tend to be a little smaller, and you know, pretty much every social group took a big hit with COVID, and so a lot of groups are just now really beginning to rebuild after becoming sometimes completely inactive or dormant, at least during COVID. So the Indian Motorcycle Riders group that I'm got plugged into is not a large group. We've got some great folks though. Matter of fact, today is Friday, it's my day off. I'm going to meet up with one of the members of the Indian Motorcycle Riders group in Raleigh, and we're going to go on a little day ride today. This past Saturday we rode together as a group, and so I really enjoy both. I mean, I can have a good time out by myself. By myself is really not my preferred riding. Now if I've got my wife with me, well then I'm not really by myself, but she probably only rides with me maybe a couple of times a year. Now before we had kids, she rode with me pretty regular, but now, you know, not very often. So, you know, I can have a good time riding by myself. I've already ridden over to Pilot Mountain and Hanging Rock, which is kind of the closer mountains to where I live. I did that by myself, and again, I can enjoy that, but you know, I'd rather ride with either, you know, a riding buddy or a group. I enjoy both of those. And so today As I mentioned, I'm going to meet up with one of my new friends here in North Carolina, and I know we're going to have a great time out on our motorcycles. You know, I know back in Southeast Texas, we had such a strong motorcycle community there, and I was really part of 3 groups: the Redeemed Disciple Motorcycle Ministry, the Indian Motorcycle Riders Group, and HOG, the Harley Owners Group. So, you know, we could just post a ride in all 3 of those Facebook sites and any day of the week, and we might have 3 or 4 show up, might have a dozen. You never really knew. Now, if it was an official, you know, Harley Owners Group ride, or an official Indian Motorcycle Riders Group ride that had been on the calendar for some time, you know, the numbers were always larger. But a lot of those folks, you know, especially if they were retired, they could ride any day of the week. Several, of course, were still working, but if they could, you know, work their day off on a day where they could go ride, you know, we would go ride. I remember 4 of us, one day we left Southeast Texas at, I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning. We rode to Mena, Arkansas, ate lunch up on the Queen Wilhelmina State Park, rode the mountains over into Oklahoma, and rode back all the same day. That day I rode 800 miles. I spent 16 hours in the saddle. So I'll ride 400 miles multiple states away just to eat lunch and turn around and come back. And I can do that with, you know, 1 or 2 riding buddies, or I can do it in a group. Let's say I know a lot of people prefer to, you know, there's nothing wrong with riding by yourself or riding with your spouse. You know, it's perfectly fine to have, you know, just 1 or 2 riding buddies that you ride with. But if you've never been part of an actual group, I would encourage you to, you know, check it out. You know, sometimes it takes a while to, you know, feel like you're part of the group, because, you know, some of those folks have been riding with each other forever, and, you know, you're new to the group. But if you keep, you know, showing up and going on rides, you will form some lasting friendships. I really am thoroughly convinced that some of these folks that I've ridden motorcycles with, we will be lifelong friends. And since, you know, the vast majority, it seems like the people that I ride with are Christians, we will be forever friends. Of course, I'm hopeful when we all get to heaven that, you know, we'll have motorcycles in our garage, but we'll see. We may not be interested in motorcycles when we get to heaven. But I can't imagine heaven without a motorcycle, but again, we'll see. So again, leave your comments down below if you like riding, prefer riding by yourself, 1 or 2 friends, or a group. Now, the risk of a group, you know, we usually ride staggered formation, so you're not, you know, there's a little distance between you and the bike and directly in front of you. But occasionally we've had a bike hit another bike. You know, you're trying to merge onto a road, you're looking forward, you're looking over your shoulder, you're looking forward, you think the group's going to go, and the group ends up stopping, and everyone is slamming on their brakes, and yeah, occasionally that can happen. You know, I think most of us have had close calls, so that's kind of the drawback. But if everybody's riding staggered formation and everybody's riding their own pace, you know, for me, it's a lot of fun. So again, I want to know what you think. You know, are you a lone wolf rider? Do you ride with a buddy? Do you ride with a group? But one thing I tend to end my videos with is the same statement. It just kind of fell out at the end of one of my videos, and I guess it shows my age. I started riding motorcycles now over 50 years ago. Yeah, I can't, there's no way I can be that old. I just can't. But anyway, so this is what I like to remind folks, and even you young folks, those years fly by. So I like to remind people, if you like to ride as much as you can, because one day we're all going to be too old to ride.
That speed okay?
Oh yeah.